Welcome. I'm Victoria Schneps, publisher of Dan's Papers, and we are making waves with me and Jane Hanson.
Hello, everybody. It's good to see you again, and thank you for joining us. And we are in the lovely village of Sag Harbor today as we cover all of the East End and give you little snippets of what's happening in all of these communities because it's so much fun. And nice headband.
Thank you. Yes, Garcia's West Hampton Beach. Anybody?
There you go. One of your favorite.
Doing one of my favorite
One
commercials.
of your favorite places. So we've got some really exciting people with us today. We have Tracy Mitchell, who is the executive director of the Bay Street
Right, I got to
Theater.
put an adjective. The brilliant director.
Oh, thank you, honey. Thank you. My own personal PR
Sag
team.
Harbor is on fire with your great cultural institution.
Well, she's
Thank
good
you.
to have as a PR director because she gets the word out there. And then we have Julia and Dana Vallan. Am I close enough?
Very close.
Oh, thank you so much. The founding artistic director of the Sag Harbor Cinema.
The cinema is alive and well, and
cinema
you've
is-
been restored.
Yes, it's a joy. The cinema is very alive.
Yeah, well, we're
Yeah.
glad to see that. And of course, what can you have in Sag Harbor without a great conversation with the mayor, James Larocca? Thank you so much for joining us.
Good to
It's
be here.
wonderful to
Thank
have you
you.
here. The last time I saw him, he was doing cabaret here in the American Hotel. So maybe it's a side gig for you?
Well, that was the first time in 60 years I did that. So
No, never forgotten, never to be
that's right.
forgotten.
I'll do it again in another 60.
What's your talent? What was it? Singing or?
Would you call it talent? You
Oh,
sat
yeah,
through it.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Of course I would call it talent.
Mayors get called on to issue proclamations,
Yes.
and I don't like to do that in the ordinary course because it's whereas.
I know.
Resolved, you know what they're like. So I decided I would sing it.
Oh.
And then I didn't like what we wrote, but this is the inn of record here in the village. And if you know Les Mis,
course.
Victor Hugo, the movie, the stage play, the musical,
Yes.
in the middle of the show, probably the best number in the whole show, is Master of the House.
Oh yes, master of the house.
Keeper of the charm. Right. And I did it verbatim. We changed only a couple of the pronouns. And in the last stanza, the master's wife gets to refute everything that's been he's said about his great orchestra. So Ted's
Ted
partner,
Conklin, of course,
Ted
who is the...
Ted Conklin, the owner of the hotel, the developer of the modern era hotel, she took up the last stanza, contradicting the entire song.
It was
And the
hilarious.
crowd
It was-
loved it.
it was hilarious.
Oh, you've
I
got to
will
do that
say.
again.
I
Oh
hope
my
we have
God.
that on tape. Do we?
We do.
Oh,
Good.
yes.
But
What fun! What fun!
my longtime friend, Fred Thiel, our assemblyman,
Yes, yes.
was here, and he had a real proclamation.
Poor
I
thing.
got on before him, and he said, "Thanks a lot."
Right. Nothing would top
You
that.
got to do all the whereas,
Yeah.
and wherefores, and
I hate to get those proclamations when they read it. I said, just present
Yeah,
it.
just say,
Thank
we
you very
proclaim
much.
this your
But
day.
I'll go back to actually delivering them after this.
No.
Oh, no, you've set a
No.
standard and you will not be able to...
We're all voting for you to go back to the
Yes,
Well,
creative
we'll see about
approach.
we'll
that.
see.
But
it
that's
was-
about Sag Harbor being creative, right?
Yes, well, that's what the whole place is. And this town is booming. I mean, if you look back on it, how long have you been mayor?
1 year.
1 year. Okay, but if you think
I
about...
lived here.
Lived here, how long?
22, 23 years.
2 decades.
Did you ever think that you would see such an explosion of everything that's happening in Sag Harbor these days?
Only because when I came home from the service, my parents had built a house over in Southold on Great Hog Neck. My little brother was still home. He had a boat, and so he introduced me to, among other places, Sag Harbor. And right across the street from where we're sitting was the Black Swan. He was 14 and a half years old. He said, I've got to show you around. We went in there, And as we went through the door, the bartender said to him, "Hi, Larry, how you doing?"
Uh-oh.
So that's what I learned about Sag Harbor of those days.
Wow.
It was a very
Loosey-goosey.
open. Well, it was a rambunctious town. It was a good town, and it's still a good town, and it still has a lot of that flavor. It's iconic. People come from all over, whether it was the whaling era, the industrial era.
Now it's the
and
yacht
agriculture.
era.
But people are coming from here, there, and everywhere. And a lot of the boats here that come here, by the way, are not the big ones. We have a lot of regular folks for whom this is the most logical port on the South Fork. And all of that's happening at the same time. Probably the biggest change I've seen in these 20 years is that the arts economy has grown, both by deliberate acts and planning of folks, and just by the organic way in which arts communities form and all of that. So we are tourism, recreation, and arts as economy now, and it is booming.
Well, talk about booming. I know that you are in the midst of a major growth and development. Tell us about your project to grow the theater.
We're working on it. We haven't gotten to the point where we're out publicly yet with another design, but we've gone back back to the drawing board to make sure that it abides by, as many of the new codes as we can possibly do. But it's interesting because, as the mayor was saying, even when I came out, now I've lived in Sag for 20 years, but had a home in Sagaponack before that. But even in the early 80s, when I was single, Sag wasn't the place that you came to, like a
To
group
meet
of
people.
women to go out
Right.
at night.
So where was the place?
There was still like 7 or 8 bars where, where people thrown out in the middle of the street at night, and we'd be like driving through going, I don't think this is the town for us. But it's amazing how quickly really things do change.
So when you came to the theater, I know that the facility was closed during COVID, and now you've brought it back with more fervor than ever. And you need to be able to grow the theater.
Yes.
So talk to us about your dream plan.
Well, we've
even if the mayor
outgrown-
he's not giving his approval or not approval, but we have to
There's
hear
nothing
about
to
it.
approve yet, but yes, I mean, we've outgrown the space. This is the number one problem. And number two is we don't own it, and it's not for sale.
Yes.
So in order to ensure that we have a permanent home, a piece of land has been purchased.
Right.
And,
Where is that land? How is it?
That's diagonally on Water Street.
The 7-Eleven building, right?
Yep.
The block
that
where
property.
7-Eleven is.
Yeah.
Yep. And so we'll be working on that. And one of the biggest reasons is that the art itself, as theater, in order to develop new work, which is what a professional regional theater does as a core part of its mission, is that out here we only have one theater, so it's 299 seats. It's a very expensive way to try and develop new work.
Sure it is.
So we have that issue, and we have tons of people that want to work out here. But we also have the issue of, because we only have that one space, we have no room for any of our kids' camps and things in the summer.
Right, of
So
course.
right now, our kids are working outside, under little tents behind the Whaling Museum, and we're very blessed to have that space and
Sure,
work
until
together
it rains
with them.
and storms,
But
and then
yes, exactly.
But how many seats are you hoping to have with the new theater?
We're still hoping to have 299, but we'll have some other spaces that we
Oh,
can work
okay.
within, rehearsal spaces and,
Right.
a black box.
Yes.
Right, and what about the notion of getting like all these professionals, actors, and behind the scenes, everybody that wants to come and be involved in the theater? Where do they live? Because it's so hard to find part-time
We
homes
put them
for
all
them.
up. We
Oh,
put
you
them
do?
all up. Yes.
That's the
So
magic
right
pill
now-
to have a place.
Right now, I'm housing about 60 people.
Oh, my. That's the best kept
Wow.
secret. That's how you get the people to be here.
There's no other
Right?
way to do it.
Yes.
You have to put your actors up, you have to put your design teams up, you have to put, if you want to have an internship program, you have to put them up.
Sure.
And I even have full-time staff that at this point are struggling to live within a 2-hour drive.
Right.
So-
So you get
well, wait a second.
amazing acts,
We also
amazing.
have right on Main Street a fabulous theater that did get renovated and did get restored.
I'll be calling them a lot.
How'd you do it?
Well, the fire in 2016, yeah, yes, was obviously was a tragedy, but it was also in a way allowed us first of all to bring attention to the theater from the community, and they really rose to the occasion. I mean, this was incredible, but also it allowed us to design the inside and plan for something that is state of the art. It would have been really harder to take it apart, brick by brick, and figure it out. And here we were kind of playing with an empty box, and so we were able to really make it to upgrade it so that it's suitable for what we wanted to do from the very beginning.
So what is it that what was the actual goal of what you wanted it to
Well,
ultimately be?
what we always thought, and I kind of saw, to what you were talking about before, about this is a community that is so interested in the arts and so lively that way. Well, what we really wanted to do was to have a theater that was popular to all the community, but also could be specialized and show more rarefied programming, and so that's why we have the 3 different spaces, and we have the Atmos for the bigger movies in the big theater. We have a smaller theater now. We have the terraces, so it's very versatile.
And you now have. I just noticed that it's called green space on the.
It's a green room. It's a bar.
green room,
upstairs.
it's a bar.
Yeah, with a Truffaut terrace and the Farkas terrace where you.
How many people fit up there?
I think that that's a tough thing for.
I won't hold you to it. I mean, you can.
But it's a great space.
It's a
A
lot.
sociable number.
I think
A
it's, I think
100?
it's about
100 people?
Well, there are 3 spaces. That's why. Yeah, I think 100 and something in a combined
Yeah.
Right.
floor.
Right.
Because that's great for the community too, to find
Yeah.
a place to
Yeah.
come together.
But of course, the name green room.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's taken from the traditional part of television and movies, where
Yes.
the green room is where
and
you.
theater.
Yeah.
and yes, and where you wait to go
Go
on
on.
the air. We
Yes.
always had a green room at NBC, except that it was never green.
Yeah.
Ours isn't either. Ours is
Never was.
purple.
Right.
Yeah. No, I think the idea was it's a little bit of a nod to the green room.
Exactly.
To make us very special.
You're waiting to go
place,
see
yeah.
a movie. You have
Yeah.
a drink, or
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, as mayor, what is your dream for this town? Do you have a dream that you'd like to see? I did this.
First of all, what is unique about Sag Harbor is that you hear about planning in Florida. They plan whole communities right down to the door knockers, and you go up to Nantucket, you can't change the latch on your gate without a commission and all
Right.
that. This place grew organically through several histories. Early agriculture, whaling, industrial age. We had factories and shipping and ferries and all of that. And we've come up with a pretty exciting and incredible main street. No one planned it. This is the way it developed in its
Interesting.
own right. So my goal for the place is we're struggling with a lot of new people, new demand on services and everything else, is to not lose this authenticity that took care of itself, that grew naturally and organically, and that's stronger and more enveloping than some of these planned things that you see.
It's not
An
vanilla.
immediate goal-
You've got a nice milkshake.
But our immediate goal now is to deal with this affordable housing
Uh-huh.
issue.
Yeah.
We spent a year creating an affordable housing structure, 3 different parts, projects, small units on private property, administration, and all that. And we've had our
Rather than one
first-
big building, you're doing a stretch out.
Right.
How
Well, we
many
don't have-
people?
We don't have a lot of big spaces.
Right.
The biggest space in the village that's available has applied just within the last few weeks to do a project of almost 80 units.
Okay.
I can't comment much on it because I'll be a regulator of that application. And it's certainly gotten everybody's attention. It's too big, it's too small, it's too tall, it's too short, it's too.
Would it
bland,
be
it's too-
affordable or is it market
well,
rate?
under the, no, not market rate.
Okay.
One of the challenges of doing this was we have required that if you want to do a project here, it has to be 100% workforce affordable housing.
Okay.
Wow.
Market taking care of itself.
Okay.
And to hold to that, makes these projects eligible for special tax treatment, tax credits, tax abatements,
And
so
most
forth.
importantly, I think, with all due respect, the biggest problem every business has out here is job filling. And they have biggest problem, you found housing. People need to have a place to live in order to work, and people are desperate for workers.
Well, of course. And there are many things little governments like ours can do and many things we can't. I think where you have a strong institution like Bay Street Theater, they've gone to the market to solve their particular problem. But I have to look at it from the point of view of what about our nurses and our school teachers and our volunteer firemen.
Yes.
And we had a tragedy just this week in our village that shows us the critical importance of having a vibrant volunteer fire department. And so we have volunteer fire, volunteer ambulance, we have volunteer sports leagues, all of that
I hope
stuff.
you don't have
All
volunteer
those-
police.
I know, we have our
They're
own-
writing you a ticket right now.
we have
They
our
could
own,
be.
I can see the ticket going on.
Right.
I know, we have our own militia, not to worry. We have a terrific young, about a dozen officers, and a crew of the most longest suffering people in the village are
Oh.
traffic control officers.
Oh my
Yes,
God,
very, very
if our
young.
city
And
meter
sure,
maids,
and nobody
they
wants
would
to be
most
told what to
despise
do.
meter maids, right?
So they say, don't turn here, they mean, what do you mean we don't turn? So they have to learn to argue early on.
Yes.
And all that.
And be firm and strong.
But I see Sag Harbor as having a future that keeps building on what it's already accomplished.
Right.
And the onset of arts going to the next level. And I think the church up the street, which we haven't mentioned, the Old Methodist Church, has become an arts
Oh,
center.
the Gornicks have,
Yeah.
April
And-
Gornick has
April
been-
Gornick and Eric
and
Fischel,
Eric Fischel.
have been leaders in the arts community here, and they have funded and put that together. And so and Eric is a very strong advocate of the idea of the arts as economy, and he's put his money where his mouth is. And the church has become and is hooked up with everybody else on projects
Well,
and programs.
that's what it really takes is for things like this to work, is strong collaboration. Because if you don't have that, it's never going to succeed.
And a strong leader
Yeah.
to make sure everything moves along.
Well, I haven't been impeached yet, so it's bound to happen, but it hasn't.
Right. So as the new mayor, I mean, you're here a year.
Right.
Are you having fun yet?
I'm having fun most of the time.
Okay, good,
We're
good.
glad to hear
Because,
that.
you know, I think being in government can be very empowering and frustrating.
Yes.
I've
Yep.
done this in one form or other most of my career in Washington and in Albany. And coming back into it at this level is gratifying and satisfying in new ways for me. For one thing, I can't go out on the street without somebody trying to give me their traffic ticket.
Or whatever.
And they said, people would come approach me and say, what am I going to do with this ticket? I said, if you're smart, you'll pay it. You know?
Or spend 90 minutes or more of your precious time in court.
Right, yeah.
But to the point about having spent this career elsewhere in much larger areas, you know how to work things. You have a lot of wisdom that comes from that experience that now you can bring to a community like this that can certainly use it. So
If I run again, you'll have to write my ad. That was terrific.
no problem.
So how long are you elected for? Is it a 2 or 4
2 years,
year?
2 year
That's
term.
what I thought is terrible. I think I call it terrible choose to have to be running after such a short
I
time.
know.
Well, we should say, the public is listening, this is essentially a volunteer government.
Yes.
The mayor and trustees get a very small stipend, but most everybody is a volunteer. So we have volunteer fire, volunteer ambulance, volunteer trustees.
So does that mean the taxes are low?
Taxes are.
Well, you don't pay taxes because you're a nonprofit, right?
Oh, no, but I personally.
Oh, well,
pay-
personally.
I for two units here in Sag Harbor, in the village.
Yeah.
Our taxes, I will defend, are relatively low compared to our neighbors.
Yes.
And certainly to the rest of Nassau and Suffolk. There's no comparison.
Well, I think, you know, being in Sag Harbor, you just feel the energy. Don't you feel the electricity
Absolutely.
on
I
the
love-
streets
I
and the
love coming
shops
here.
and
It's fun.
the people that have made it an art mecca?
Yeah, and that's what I really love about it is that kind of cultural vibe that you feel.
We have the Carnival on Havens Beach this week. We will have the Harbor Festival in September. Between now and then, the Antiguan government will be here next week. We have a sister relationship with them. And
Where?
With
Antigua.
the island of Antigua.
Antigua. Oh, wow.
And there's a
That's
sailboat
beautiful.
race.
It's
Sailboat
like
race.
vacations.
Yes.
There's a sailboat race that one year is in Antigua and the other year is
Antigua.
here. This year it is here, and the minister is coming, and we're going to have an Antiguan cultural event in our new Steinbeck Park. And then we get into late September, early October, we will have the 10th, 11th anniversary of the American Music Festival live that we have here.
On the street, out in the park?
We're also doing that out in the park, but we have venues all over town. So it starts with March down Main Street. And then finally, and I've signed you up for it, and I hope you appreciate it, we have Harbor Frost, and we open with a swim.
Now, what a generous thing to do.
Folks, if you like Dan's papers, you should encourage the publisher to sign
Do the
up.
jump.
Do the jump. You don't have to stay in long.
I'll pay money to see that.
I did that once for cancer care. They jumped, the whole
You
can
do
of,
better.
of ice on my head. But then the beauty
part.
parlor had an appointment for me right after it. I don't know
See?
about here if
We
you
can
arrange
arrange
that.
We
that.
can. That's
Go in the
easy.
water, Tracy and I.
Yeah, well, we're on it.
Easy.
Got it, okay.
Well, it's
Well,
been
this is
such a
great.
pleasure,
Yes,
hasn't it? I really
absolutely.
love the conversation. Thank you all for all the great work you do. It's really nice to see you,
Thanks
Mayor.
for
Thank
coming
you.
in. Come on
Guilia.
back.
Yeah.
Thank
Tracy?
you for having us.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
And this is Victoria Schneps, Making Waves with
Jane Hanson. We'll see you next time.
Bye.